Imagine you go to the doctor, right, for this just terrible chest infection.
Oh yeah, the worst kind.
Yeah, you're hacking your lungs out. And instead of pulling out a swab to test for, a specific microscopic bacteria or whatever,
They ask you to stick out your tongue.
exactly, they just look at a few, dense, bright red spots on your tongue. And they tell you that your body's entire weather system is just completely out of balance.
Which is wild.
Right. So today, we are basically throwing away the microscope.
We really are. It requires a complete mental shift. I mean, truly. Because in West, we're just so conditioned to view a medical diagnosis like engineering,
Fixing a machine.
Exactly. You get sick, they run a test, they find the bad guy, the virus or the bacteria.
Right.
They give you a pill to target. It's very tactical.
Right. But when you step into the world of traditional Chinese medicine, that hyper-focused lens just vanishes. Suddenly, these ancient texts are asking you to look at the human body as this, interconnected ecosystem.
An actual battleground of elemental forces.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to be unpacking for you on today's deep dive. Whether you are studying medicine or trying to figure out your own body or honestly just insanely curious about different worldviews, this is for you.
It is a massive paradigm shift.
Totally. So we've got a stack of really fascinating source materials today on the pathology of Chinese medicine. Specifically, we're looking at excerpts from these two foundational PDFs, Pathology Introduction, ACAM, and Pathology Introduction, FCM.
Which are just incredibly dense but so rewarding.
Oh, for sure. And we're going to see what happens when you treat the body less like a broken machine and more like a living environment. And I am so glad to be joined by my absolute favorite co-pilot for these deep dives to help synthesize all this dense medical philosophy.
Well, thank you. I am thrilled to be here. This material is so rich because it completely reframes how we think about health and sickness.
Yeah.
It moves us away from just hunting for the bug and really forces us to look at the terrain that the bug landed on.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we get into the really specific mechanics of how this pathology works, we absolutely need to nail down this different lens.
Right, the macro versus the micro.
Yes. The sources actually give a great comparison between how Western medicine and Chinese medicine look at something incredibly common, like an upper respiratory tract infection that's moved into the chest.
Oh, that's a perfect example. So say a patient has a fever, chest aches, and a really profuse cough.
We've all been there.
Right, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So a Western doctor's immediate instinct is to determine the exact microscopic culprit. They want to know, is this a specific bacterium causing pneumonia?
Or is it viral?
Exactly. Is it a viral bronchitis? Is it SARS? They want to isolate it.
They essentially need a mugshot of the enemy?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But Chinese medicine doesn't analyze the pathogenic factor in that microscopic fashion at all. It's just not what it's built for.
So what is it looking for then?
It's concerned with broad disease processes. It looks at the balance of the invading pathogenic factors versus the body's own energy, like the balance of yin and yang.
Okay, so it's zooming way out.
Way out. In the case of that chest infection, the Chinese medical pathology assesses that an exterior pathogenic factor has penetrated the interior of the body and has grown stronger.
Wow. Okay. It makes me think of it this way. Western medicine treats the body like a machine. If you're a car that breaks down, they want to find the cracked spark plug or the rusted gear and just replace
Just
it.
swap the part out.
But traditional Chinese medicine treats the body like a garden. If the leaves on your favorite plant start turning yellow, you don't just paint them green,
Yeah, of course not.
And you don't just stare at the leaf. You check the soil, you check the water supply, you look at the sunlight. It's the broad ecosystem versus the isolated part.
That is a fantastic analogy.
But reading this, I kept wondering, do these two systems just fundamentally clash? I mean, if one is zooming all the way in and the other is looking at the whole garden, are they totally at odds?
It's a really great question, and the texts make a fascinating point about this. They're not at odds at all. They're actually highly complementary.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, a Western doctor could massively benefit from the broad picture assessment that Chinese medicine provides.
But how does that actually work in practice, though? Like, how does looking at the soil help fix the spark plug?
Well, the text gives a perfect clinical example of this. Let's go back to that patient with the chest infection.
Okay, the one hacking their lungs out.
Yeah, exactly. A Chinese medicine practitioner might examine that patient's tongue and observe several dense, bright red points.
Just right there on the tongue.
Right. And in Chinese medical pathology, those specific broad manifestations, those dense red points, They indicate that the pathogenic factor is incredibly strong and has penetrated deeply into the body.
Like a massive alarm bell going off in the body's ecosystem?
Precisely. It's a huge warning sign. And a Western doctor, even if they're entirely focused on finding this specific bacteria, they could use that broad Chinese medicine observation as an early warning sign.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, seeing those red spots alerts the doctor to the sheer severity of the situation. It shows them the pathogen is overwhelming the body's defenses right now.
So they don't have to wait for a lab culture to know it's bad.
Exactly. That broad observation might prompt the Western doctor to start antibiotics much earlier in the disease process than they normally would have. The macro literally informs the micro.
That is so cool. So it's not an either-or situation at all. You can use the weather report to know how aggressively you need to treat the machine.
Exactly. It's the best of both worlds.
Okay, so now that we understand Chinese medicine is looking at this broad ecosystem, what are the actual forces creating the weather? Because the texts talk about this epic clash at the heart of all illness.
Yes, the clash of the Qis. It sounds like a movie title, but it's really the foundation of the medicine. The texts generalize the onset of any disease as a fundamental conflict between two opposing forces,
And those are,
antipathogenic qi and pathogenic qi.
right, so antipathogenic qi is called Zheng qi in the texts, Z-H-E-N-G, right?
That's one.
And this is essentially your body's functional activity and its innate ability to resist disease, like your core vitality.
Yes, your internal strength. And on the other side of the battlefield is pathogenic qi, or Qi, Xie.
The bad guys.
Right. This refers to all the various causative factors of disease, the invading force, basically.
And the sources lay out a very strict rule about how these two interact to actually make you sick. It isn't just about being exposed to Ziki, is it?
No, not at all.
Oh.
The texts state definitively that for a disease to occur, you must have both a relative weakness of antipathogenic qi and the presence of pathogenic qi.
You have to have both.
Both. But here is the critical part that you really have to grasp. The internal factor, your body's resistance, is always primary.
Meaning?
It's the internal weakness that actually allows the invasion to happen in the first place.
So basically, having a strong Zheng Qi is like having an invisible force field around you.
That's a super helpful way to visualize it. If the force field is fully powered, the invaders just bounce right off.
They don't even stand a chance.
Right. The texts quote an ancient foundational book called The Plain Questions to cement this rule.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, chapter 72 states, pathogenic kin cannot invade the body if the antipathogenic kin remains strong. And then chapter 33 follows up by saying, the antipathogenic kin must be weak if invasion of pathogenic kin takes place.
I have to say, reading that, it feels a bit harsh.
So
It's just so black and white. It almost sounds like it's saying, you know, if you caught a cold, it's your own fault because your force field was weak. Is it really that absolute?
I totally get that. It sounds super judgmental to our modern ears. But medically, it's really just describing a state of vulnerability.
Okay, fair enough.
And we actually see this in Western medicine, too, all the time.
We do.
Yeah. Imagine two people sit in the same room with someone who has the flu. One gets sick, one doesn't.
Oh, right. That happens every winter.
Exactly. And why is that? Because the person who didn't get sick had a stronger immune response that day. Maybe they slept better, or were way less stressed, or had better nutrition that week. TCM just codifies that internal readiness as the primary driver of health.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it like that. But getting sick isn't just a one-day event where the force field drops and boom, you're done. It's a whole progression.
Right. It evolves.
So how does this battle actually play out over time once the invasion happens?
What's fascinating here is how this ongoing struggle dictates the entire progression and transformation of a disease.
Okay.
The conflict between your Zheng Qi and the invading Xin Qi creates functional disturbances in your body. And this struggle primarily manifests in two main ways:
Which are?
excess syndromes and deficiency syndromes.
Okay, let's break those down. What does an excess syndrome actually look like in this battle?
So an excess syndrome happens when there's a hyperactivity of the pathogenic Qi.
Lacey.
Yes. The invading army is incredibly strong and active. You usually see this in the early or middle stages of a disease caused by an outside pathogen, like a fresh, nasty flu.
Oh, I hate those.
We all do. The text also notes it's common in diseases caused by the retention of things inside the body, too,
Like what kind of thing?
like phlegm fluid, stagnant blood, water dampness, or even retained food. The key here is that the pathological reaction is dominated by the sheer excess of the bad stuff.
So the invader is just swarming the battlefield, and your body's going crazy fighting it.
Exactly. It's a loud, messy fight.
Got it. What about deficiency syndromes then?
A deficiency syndrome is the opposite side of the coin. It's a pathological reaction dominated by the decline of your Zhengqi, your anti-pathogenic resistance.
You're losing.
You're just exhausted.
And it'll,
This isn't usually a fresh cold. This is commonly seen in lingering diseases.
like when you've been sick for weeks.
Right. Think of issues resulting from a prolonged weakness of your body constitution, poor organ function, or a deficiency of your own candida in blood because a disease has just been dragging on for months, wearing you down.
So the generator powering the force field is literally burning out.
Exactly. You just don't have the juice left to fight.
Okay, so we have these forces fighting, whether it's a huge battle or a slow burnout. But how does the collateral damage actually manifest in the body's environment?
Well, this is where we get into the terrain.
Right, because the texts move into a concept that basically everyone has heard of, but they explain it in a very specific clinical way.
Yin and yang.
Yes, yin and yang.
The texts state that all the contradictions and changes occurring in the disease process can be generalized in terms of yin and yang.
Everything.
Everything. It's the decisive factor in the occurrence and development of disease. Basically, disease will not occur unless the invading pathogen causes a derangement, a disharmony of yin and yang in your body's interior.
Okay, so how does this actually show up if the garden is out of balance, like physically?
Yin and yang disharmony is mainly manifested in the form of cold and heat. It's very logical once you see the pattern.
Okay, walk me through it.
First, if you have an excess of yang in the body, that manifests as heat syndromes of the excess type.
Okay, that tracks. Because yang is associated with heat and activity. Too much yang, you get excess heat.
Right. Second, if you have an excess of yin, that manifests as cold syndromes of the excess type.
Because yin is associated with cooling, resting, fluid. Too much yin equals excess cold.
Exactly. It's very straightforward. But then we look at the deficiencies, which is where it gets a little trickier.
Okay, bracing myself.
Third, if you have a deficiency of yang, you don't just return to a neutral normal, you get cold syndromes of the deficiency type
Wait, why cold?
because you lack the heat to balance your normal yin.
Oh, so you're freezing not because you have too much cold energy, but because your heater is literally broken.
Spot on. The cold is winning by default. And fourth, if you have a deficiency of yin, you experience heat syndromes of the deficiency type.
Let me guess. Your cooling system is broken, so your normal yang runs too hot.
You nailed it.
I'll be honest, though, this sounds a bit too neat.
How do you mean?
Well, human bodies are incredibly messy and complicated. Does this yin and yang four-square grid actually map perfectly to complex diseases, or is it kind of an oversimplification?
It seems overly neat until you look at how TCM handles the complexities. And the texts actually throw a massive curveball right after laying out that system.
Here's where it gets really interesting, folks. What's the curveball?
They talk about false heat and false cold.
False heat.
Yeah. They explain that in the progression of a disease, an excess of yin can actually wall off yang to create false heat symptoms.
Wait, what?
And an excess of yang can wall off yin to create false cold symptoms.
Wait. How on earth can an excess of cold resting yin energy create false heat? That sounds like a contradiction.
It is a total paradox, but it's a crucial concept, so practitioners don't misdiagnose a patient. What the text is explaining is that extreme conditions in a disease's progression can mask the true underlying disharmony.
Okay, how does that mechanism actually work visually? Help me see this walling off thing.
Okay, think of a frozen lake in the dead of winter.
Okay, got it.
The lake is entirely frozen solid. That is your extreme excess of yin, the deep, profound cold in the core of the body.
Right.
But sometimes, when the air above a lake is just right, the extreme cold of the ice forces, whatever tiny bit of latent heat is left to the very surface, and you literally see steam rising off the ice.
Oh, wow, I've seen that.
Right. If you just looked at the steam, you might think, oh, there's heat there.
Yeah.
That's the false heat.
Oh, wow, that's a really great image. So how does that look in a person?
Inside the body, if yin is so excessively dominant that it completely takes over the interior, it can push the remaining weakened yang energy completely out to the exterior of the body.
Out to the surface.
Yes. So the patient might have a flushed face or feel feverish on their skin, classic heat symptoms, but it's false heat. The core of the patient is absolutely freezing.
That is wild.
The excess yin has literally walled off the yang, pushing it away from the center. And here's the danger. If a doctor only treats that surface heat, By giving them cooling herbs.
They'll freeze the core even more.
Exactly. They'll make the underlying deep cold so much worse. It could be disastrous.
That is incredible. It forces the practitioner to look completely past the surface symptoms and understand the deep environmental mechanics going on.
Absolutely. You can't just trust the steam.
Okay, so we've got the forces fighting, and we have the environmental imbalance of yin and yang. But how does all this energy actually move through the body so you can, function? The sources talk about the traffic control of the body.
Traffic control is the perfect way to describe the movement of qi. The functional activities of all your internal organs, the Zangfu organs, your meridians, your blood, they're all maintained by the constant circulation of qi.
Wait, pause. Zangfu, meridians. Before we go any further, for those of us who don't have a TCM textbook sitting in front of us, what exactly are those structures?
Ah, right, sorry. So Zangfu is just the collective term for your internal organs.
Okay.
Zang refers to the solid organs that store vital substances, like the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys.
Solid organs, got it.
And Fu refers to the hollow organs that process food and waste, like the stomach, intestines, and bladder.
Makes sense. And the meridians?
Meridians are essentially the invisible highway system that connects all these organs together. They're the channels through which the qi actually flows.
Okay, so we have the organs as the destinations and the highways. How does the traffic actually move on them?
The text lays out 4 basic forms of qi transmission: ascending, descending, outward, and inward movement. Up, down, in, and out.
Very simple.
Exactly. But when these movements fail, when they lose their normal state of governing ascent and descent, that's when pathological states occur in those Zangfu organs.
The traffic jam. The sources give some really specific examples of this traffic control failing, and it really shows the mechanics of why we experience certain symptoms. Let's look at the lung.
Okay, great example.
According to the text, lung qi is supposed to descend and disperse. If that traffic control fails and the qi cannot descend, the result is a cough, asthmatic breathing, and a suffocating sensation in the chest. Why does a downward failure cause that specifically?
Because if the energy and fluids that the lung is supposed to be actively pushing down into the rest of the body get blocked, they have nowhere to go but up and out.
Oh.
Yeah, the air and energy literally back up in the chest cavity. The suffocating sensation is the physical pressure of energy that's trapped up high when it naturally needs to be moving down.
It's like a blocked exhaust pipe.
Yeah, that's a super good way to put it.
What about the spleen? The text says the spleen's function is kind of the exact opposite.
It is.
It's supposed to send the clear essence of food upward to the lungs. It must ascend. If it fails, the text says the result is loose stools and diarrhea. What's the mechanism there?
It's all about gravity and active lifting. The spleen in TCM is responsible for actively holding things up in their proper place and lifting the nutrients from your food upward.
Like an elevator.
Exactly like an elevator.
Yeah.
If that active lifting mechanism fails, if the elevator breaks down gravity and the body's natural downward pressure just take over.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the fluids and energy just drop right out of the digestive tract, hence the loose stools.
It literally drops out the bottom instead of rising up. That makes total sense. Then the text mentions the stomach, which is supposed to push partially digested food down.
Right, obviously.
If stomach qi ascends abnormally, if it goes the wrong way up the one-way street, you get belching and nausea.
Exactly. Every single one of these examples shows a system where disease isn't just an isolated malfunction. It's a failure of movement. The energy is moving in the wrong direction.
Okay, but think about this. If the stomach is pushing energy down and the spleen is pushing energy up, aren't these energies just constantly crashing into each other?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. How does the body not just short circuit with all this opposing traffic? There has to be a central hub managing this flow.
You've hit on the exact physiological mechanism that prevents that collision. The text identified this grand central station. They call it the middle jiao.
Okay, I have to stop you again. What on earth is a jiao? J-I-A-O, right?
Fair question. Yes, J-I-A-O. In TCM, the torso is divided into 3 sections called jiaos, which translates roughly to burners or cavities.
Okay.
The upper jiao is your chest, housing the heart and lungs. The lower jiao is your lower abdomen, housing the kidneys and intestines.
So the middle jiao is?
The middle jiao is your upper abdomen, and it houses the spleen and the stomach. Together, the spleen and stomach in this middle cavity form the ultimate pivot of the entire mechanism for ascending and descending qi.
The ultimate pivot. That sounds like extremely high stakes.
Oh, the stakes couldn't be higher. The text emphasizes that regulating these 2 organs in the middle jiao is absolutely essential in clinical practice.
Why is it so crucial?
because the physiological functions of the entire human body can only be maintained when the ascending function of spleen qi and the descending function of stomach qi are cooperating. They're the engine of movement for the whole body.
Wow.
They act like a huge rotary in the middle of a highway system, keeping the up and down traffic flowing smoothly around each other instead of just head-on crashing.
So what does this all mean for your actual health and day-to-day life? Why is this middle pivot so critical? Like, what happens if the rotary gets jammed?
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the spleen and stomach provide, with the text coals, the material basis for the acquired constitution.
Acquired constitution.
Yeah, you're born with a certain baseline constitution, but your acquired constitution is what you build every single day through your food, the air you breathe, and the energy you generate.
So it's your daily fuel.
Exactly. If this middle pivot fails, if the spleen stops sending up and the stomach stops sending down, everything breaks down.
The texts list a whole cascade of disasters if this pivot fails, actually.
Yes, they do. The clear yang will not be disseminated through your body. The acquired essence from your food cannot be stored.
So we're not getting nutrients.
Right. The clean qi from the atmosphere and your diet cannot be properly received. And perhaps most importantly, turbid phlegm and waste will not be dispelled from the body.
So it just builds up.
Yeah. As the text warns, numerous diseases will result. If Grand Central Station shuts down, the whole city starves and fills with garbage.
Wow. We've covered an immense amount of ground today. We started by zooming way out, comparing the sort of machine-like view of Western medicine with the macroscopic garden-like view of traditional Chinese medicine. We saw how looking at broad signs like red spots on a tongue can actually complement Western treatments by acting as this amazing early warning system.
It's all connected.
Oh.
We also dove into the epic clash between your internal force field, the Zheng Qi,
Yeah.
and the external invaders, the Zi. We looked at how diseases manifest through the complex environmental imbalances of yin and yang, creating heat, cold, and even those super tricky fall symptoms where extreme cold pushes latent heats to the surface.
The frozen lake with the steam. And finally, we mapped out the precise traffic control of the body, realizing that the spleen and stomach act as the grand pivot in the middle jiao, keeping all our energy flowing in the right directions.
Yes.
For you listening, we hope this deep dive provides a totally new, holistic framework for how to interpret your own body's signals. It's not just about isolated mechanical failures, you're managing an interconnected, dynamic ecosystem.
It really is beautiful. And looking at the text, there's one final thought I want to leave you with, something that really flips our modern anxieties completely upside down.
Ooh, what's that?
The sources strictly state that antipathogenic qi is primary, being the internal factor that allows the invasion of the external factor.
The internal force field is primary.
Exactly. And if that ancient wisdom is true, then so much of modern society's health anxiety might be entirely backward.
Oh.
Think about it. We spend almost all of our energy obsessing over the external Zheng Qi. We try to sanitize everything. We buy antibacterial everything. We dodge every draft or germ in the environment.
Oh, totally. We're obsessed with the bugs.
Right. We're constantly looking outward, terrified of the invaders.
Yeah.
But this philosophy suggests we should be directing that exact same energy inward.
Wow.
Instead of just fearing the microscopic army outside the gates, we should be constantly cultivating, nourishing, and fortifying our own internal Zheng Qi.
That is so powerful. It completely shifts the power back to you. You're not just a victim waiting for the next germ. You're the architect of your own internal shield.
Beautifully said.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the big picture, and we will catch you next time.